Hello and welcome to the beginning of my Andor Season 2 coverage. I will be covering the episodes as they're releasing, which is very convenient. They're coming out in groups of three, so I'll be able to cover each of the arcs pretty concisely every week, and it should be good. Um, just kind of overview of where we were at the end of Season 1 and kind of what I was expecting. What I wanted to see was more of the IBS plot with Major Partagast and Miro and Cyril. I really liked that stuff, so I was really hoping that we'd get more of it in this season, and we are. They're all back in here, and we'll talk about what they're doing with them. And then the Mon Mothma plotline, I wanted to see some more exploration of how she was feeling because of what she had done at the end of the season, which is um, basically sell off her daughter, and we do get more of that, and so we'll give into that. And then we'll just see what the rest of the show's up to. And that's kind of where I was with wanting to see Andor Season 2. And I was just really praying it wasn't bad because this show really had the chance of becoming the fourth horseman of terrible Season 2s. Because we had House of the Dragon Season 2, Arcane Season 2, and Daredevil Season 2. All varying levels of inferior to their season ones. House of the Dragon probably being the best, or definitely being the best. And I don't even know between Arcane and Daredevil, they're both terrible. And just because of just recency bias from all the terrible season twos, I was really hesitant about Andor, especially after seeing the trailer for it. It looks like kind of Disney polished to be, we gotta have more action and blah blah blah. We had weird music to get everyone in, and it kind of turned me off a little bit to the trailer and the show. Um, but I've seen the episodes now, and I guess we'll just dig right into it, starting with episode 1. So, we are starting at 4 BBY, a year after the events of the previous season. Andor is on a mission to steal a new Imperial ship prototype on Sinar, which I thought was a planet name, and it might be, but I was informed that Sinar is actually an Imperial arms and aircraft manufacturer, so it could just be like this is just like the company location. This isn't actually the name of the planet. But I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Point is that he's undercover to steal the ship, and he goes through it. It seems like they have a person on the inside. They got a plan. He gets into the ship, and he tries flying it out, but he just totally wrecks it. He's like tossing the ship all over the hangar bay and everything. It's a disaster. And like he's getting shot at. The alarms are going off, and and then he flies out of the hangar, shoots his way out, and then flies away. The TIE fighters are launched, obviously, to chase him, and he just barely makes it out of there. And so when the scene was finished, I was like, I do not like this at all. And it's because I immediately got flashbacks to the heist in season 1. And if you think about it, it was just really credits on this back end planet guarded by 40 people. It's kind of something the Empire isn't paying much attention to. They don't care enough to actually fortify it with any meaningful security measures. The soldiers there don't want to be there, and they're just kind of lazy and they don't care. And so, even in those circumstances, the heist was so incredibly difficult to pull off. They barely made it out. A bunch of their guys died. So that like feels really earned when they actually do finally make it out. And then with this just feels like it would be 10 times harder because this is like a new, expensive Imperial ship that you're stealing at an actual Imperial base that's well looked after. Like the Empire actually cares about it. So the idea that Andor just like messes up so badly, or gets messed up so badly, we'll discuss it later, um, and still manages to make it out. I was like, I don't know. I don't really think we can really do that. Um, but we'll go back to that. We get a little more context for it. So Um, One thing to note before we go on is that I really still like the production quality of the show. It's still really good. Um, it looks great. It sounds great. The costuming and um, everything's really good, and the acting is still on point too for everyone. Everyone's still giving it their best performance. Um, the actual writing, we'll get into it, I guess, right now. So we cut over to Bix, who is hiding out with Brasso and Wilmon, the kid from season one whose father got hung, and they're all on this outer rim uh, farm planet. I can't remember what it's called, but apparently it's new. It was just made up for this show, so no previous thing there to reference. But they're on the planet, and Bix is having a nightmare about Dr. Gorst, the torturer from season one. And I was like, yes, this is perfect. We can actually get some, dare I say, character development for Bix, who didn't have too much in season one. It was really focused on building up everyone else, but we can finally get something where Bix is still carrying the trauma of the torture, because that was pretty intense what happened to her. So we're getting that. And then cutting over to the Mon Mothma side, the wedding is happening for her daughter, who, remember, she was very hesitant, but eventually she decided to sell out for banking security in season one. And I just really wanted her to have to gripe with that a little bit more, because that's like just a really big that's a really big decision for her that I don't think she was ready for. So we will continue with that. This will be getting a lot of cutting back between people. It's not like straight shot most of the story in this episode, so I'll try to keep everything as chronological as possible so you can understand. So Wilmon, who is the kid, has a romance subplot. He's got a girlfriend on the planet, which I don't think that's the direction I want to. I don't care. It's like, okay, why are we spending time on this? Really, what I would want from Wilmon is, and just what you could do with him. Not necessarily, you don't have to, but if you're going to include him, what I would want is some sort of, how would I say, a struggle, inner conflict with him, dealing with his dad being executed by the Empire. Maybe what would happen is like Bix and Brasso, would all have some sort of plan that's like carefully melded to make sure the Empire doesn't detect them, but just out of anger for the Empire uncontrollably because they killed his dad, he messes up the plan, and then they have to work with it from there. That's probably what I would want. I just don't care about the romance subplot, but whatever, it's happening. Moving on, I guess. The Empire is actually inspecting the farmland on this planet, which it's possible. I think it's a little strange just because we saw in the original trilogy that when the Empire went to Tatooine to look for Luke, look for the plans to the Death Star, it was kind of weird having the Empire there. In the Outer Rim, it's kind of like they don't have established control, so it's really odd that like they'd be like performing inspections to this degree. I guess the Outer Rim is still somewhat under the control of the Empire, but it just seems really strange. And like Imperial resources at this point would be drawn to stuff like this rather than all the other problems they're dealing with. But it's not a criticism. It's curious to me. It's very curious. So Andor takes the stolen ship to a new planet we haven't seen before, or have we? But he lands, and the person he's supposed to transfer the ship to is not there, and instead he runs into this other group of rebels who are just these like disorganized like idiots, and he has to deal with like they capture him and they really don't trust him, so he has to deal with getting out with them. It's not super interesting. I'm just gonna be honest. We don't really get much in terms of who these people like really are as characters. We just kind of have to go through Andor trying to get out from under their thumb, and that's really all you can say for that. Moving on to the Empire, Director Krennic is back, and he's having a meeting with some top Imperial officers, including Partagast and Deidre. Deidre and Partagast being the IBS agents from season 1, if you don't remember. And they basically have this long conversation about how the Empire needs, the Emperor needs energy for just energy efficiency, like unlimited energy for the Empire to run on, and something to coat the reactor lenses on the Death Star. And to do this, there's this planet called Gorman, and it is planned to be mined by the Empire because it has this material called calcite, which would be perfect for the uses of the Empire. And they had this conversation. I really like it because it basically shows how like the rest of the Empire kind of has to deal with Palpatine's bullshit about like he just doesn't care about people. He just wants to get his own ends, but the rest of the people actually know that you can't just like outright massacre an entire planet without serious consequences. So they kind of have to just work around all this stuff. For example, Partagast actually recognizes that Gorman might be prideful people who are kind of hard to work with, but they are part of the Empire, and the consequences of doing what they plan to do could be very bad. So the Empire suggests using propaganda. This is suggested by two guys from the Ministry of Enlightenment, which is like the Empire's propaganda group. They're basically like the Joseph Goebbels, whatever Hitler's propaganda guy was. That's basically what they are. And that's what's going on there. Super fun and exciting. Then let's see. Yes, so Tay, who was the banker who facilitated Mon Mothma getting a meeting with the guy who's marrying his son to her daughter. You have to forgive me. I struggle with names in these shows a lot. There's just so many people, but he's basically the guy that helped her, and he's had some bad business ventures since then, and now seeing that everyone is coming out of this having gotten what they wanted except him, he's kind of jaded by the whole thing, and now also in fear that what he did might be discovered and that he might get the short end of the stick. And so he's having second thoughts, and I'll be interested to see where that goes. And that pretty much wraps up episode 1. Episode 2 is going to be very quick because seriously not a lot happens in this. And it's funny, the criticism of like the opening was so boring got levied at episode 1 at the first 3 episodes really hard, even though I completely disagree. There's so much happening, it was so interesting. But if someone said that about these 3 episodes, I'd be much more inclined to agree, because the farm planet side with Bix and the Andor side, we don't get a lot at all in terms of something interesting. We get a lot of repeated information, even like repeated scenes, I would say. And we're just like not getting a lot for character. It's just like plot progression. So if I was just looking at these 3 episodes by themselves without having seen the rest of the season, I'd say it is inferior to season 1, definitely. But we'll just have to see how it pulls together in the last 9 episodes. So going through with episode 2, as I said, Cassian and Bix's side of the story just continues, and it's pretty boring. Cyril is back. We get a quick glimpse of him. He's working at the requisition center, I believe it is. And now he's like the guy who was walking him around, explained to him in season 1 how it all works. Now he's doing that job. And we also find out in a later scene that he is now with Dedra in a relationship. and it looks pretty far along now. I guess it's a year's difference. Uh, if you don't remember, he basically saved her from being annihilated by rebels during the outbreak on Ferrix, and I guess that was enough to solidify the relationship because it had been pretty aggressive up to that point. So they're in the relationship now. I guess my only complaint is that I would have loved to see that relationship develop. I would have liked to see like the start of that where it's just like because it was like very hostile uh, in season 1. He was basically stalking her, and she was very she's very stern in general. So it seemed like a very match made in hell type of scenario. Um, but as long as we get more of what the relationship was like in this season, I think I'll be okay. And yeah, I'm just really happy that we're actually not forgetting about them. That's more you can say for a lot of shows. So we get a little more on Tay's business investments. Basically, he had tried to do something separately from Mon and keep it low profile. It was actually rebel activity that hurt his business investments, and so you can see why he's particularly jaded that he went through all this trouble to help, and now he's getting screwed over, and Mon Mothma and Luthen and they just don't seem to care. So now that this worries on Mon's mind, you kind of get this feeling through just some looks and like some conversations with Luthen. It's like, are they gonna kill Tay? Are they gonna kill Mon Mothma's childhood friend just in the hopes of silencing him for the rebellion? It's like, well, is that something they would do? Is that something Mon Mothma would do? And it's like, wow, okay. I want to make a note on something that I really didn't like. It's adding to this inferior narrative that I'm getting for the season. We get like this whole sequence where Luthen's assistant goes back to the shop on Coruscant and pulls out her communications to do something that Luthen told her to do. And I was just thinking, like, we didn't need that at all. We heard Luthen tell her to do that. We understand that assumedly should be going back to Coruscant, and we know where the communications desk is because we saw it in season 1. We didn't really need to see her doing this. We don't need to waste the time. And this is what my point is. It's like season 1 really didn't do this. There wasn't a lot of wasted breath. We were always accomplishing something on all the plot lines, not just the ones that I found most interesting. On all of it, we were accomplishing something. So I'm just not sure what happened here. But in any case, we go on with the wedding. Perrin, Mon Mothma's husband, gives a speech basically saying, yeah, there'll be plenty of trials and tribulations, especially with our life under the Empire. But we should enjoy the little pleasures and the happy things and the little things that we can only get maybe temporarily, but are incredibly important. And I'm sure that will be thematically relevant in some capacity as we go forward. It's a fine speech. It's fun. So going back to the Cassian plot, I know, main character plot is so boring. The proto-rebels have this split mini civil war, and they start fighting each other, and eventually, in that confusion, Cassian's able to break free and escape with the ship, and that's literally it. There's not much else to say on that. That's just what happens. Yeah, incredibly wasted opportunity, I would say, getting to learn more about proto-rebellions. But we do learn on the last shot that the planet that they were on the whole time is actually Yavin 4. And I was just like, well, wait a second. Imagine the ship has some sort of tracker on it. Like, then that would have led the Empire straight to Yavin 4, and that the whole continuity would have just been destroyed because the rebels would never have been able to use that as a base. So we have to headcanon that the Empires didn't have a tracker on the ship, which I think is a bit of a stretch. I think they definitely would, or just have some way to track it, some IP number, whatever. Anyway, we go on to episode 3. So we get a conversation between Cassian and Luthen's assistant, and Cassian basically explains that the ship that he has is not the one that he was trained to pilot, and that the plan is totally compromised. And this helps alleviate some of my concerns about the opening scene of episode 1. The reason we actually have reasoning why Cassian just totally failed, and that it wasn't for a lack of planning, which it would on Luthen's side there would definitely be a lot of planning involved. He's super careful with this sort of thing, and so the only concern left would be the easiness of Cassian's escape, where it's like, can you really believe that he would get away from this Imperial aircraft manufacturer that probably has tons of TIE fighters and pilots ready to go? Yeah, maybe. I'd have to think about it a little more, but I don't know. It's rocky. Our foundation is rocky on that one. But that's what we get for that. And then back on Farmland, the Empire is getting closer with their inspections, and our ragtag group of rebels are having to work around the fact and try to find some way to subvert the Empire from finding them. That's what's going on there. Then back with Mon Mothma at the wedding, right before the actual ceremony, Mon Mothma actually tries to convince her daughter to reject the wedding, and I really like this scene because she's obviously like kind of it's sinking in for Mon. Just how like this is actually happening. Like she did this to her daughter, and she really doesn't want her to go through with it. And it's actually her daughter that's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm going through with it. What's the problem? And she's just like, well, that's it. I've tried, but we are actually going down this path now. And it's really great. I'm happy that we're actually like getting to do this with Mon Mothma. And then a really good scene, Cyril and Deidre. We discovered what they were preparing for in the previous episode was dinner with Cyril's mom, and this is like brilliant because we've seen the way Deidre acts and what her personality is like with her job. We've seen the way that Cyril and his mother act. We've seen all their conversations in season 1. They were amazing. And so now a dinner scene with all three of them is like just heaven. It's going to be amazing to watch. I already knew. And it was awesome. So we'll get a little more into that in a second. First, I want to finish up with Mon Mothma and the wedding. And from here, I'll finish out all the stories together because I think it makes a little more sense that way. So what happened was we discovered in the previous episodes that Luthen had been coordinating some sort of secret with the banker dude that Mon Mothma doesn't like. I can't remember his name for the life of me. I'm terrible. I'm so sorry. He's an actual character. I should know his name, but whatever. So there's some sort of secret, and we discovered that there was a gift. It was like some sort of statue for the wedding as a gift, and I'll have to rewatch it. But I really think I like the significance of this, being that Mon Mothma sees the banker guy and Luthen in there giving her the gift, and you can kind of interpret this as she feels like torn, really. She's got Luthen pulling her with the rebellion side. She got what she had to do has made her get pulled by the banker guy, and she's just getting pulled in all these different directions, and she like doesn't have really any choice in the matter. She has to just accept that these people just have a permanent mark in her life, and there's nothing she can do about it. Really good stuff. And at the same time, Tay is becoming increasingly like, I'm getting really upset, and I'm going to take like drastic measures. And she's trying to be like, no, we'll talk next week. We'll set a number for a way for you to get compensated for your losses. But he's just like, it just doesn't seem like it's going to work. You can just tell that with like the expressions between the two, that like Mom's like, this guy's going kind of nuts. And now Luthen knows about it, and he's involved. And the underlying suggestion is we're going to have to get rid of him. And I think this basically, Mon Mothma's just breaks at this point. She's like, I can't handle this. This is too much. This guy's a friend of mine. I can't really. So she starts drinking a lot at the wedding, and she's dancing, and she's just kind of like trying to numb herself to what's happening. She's just kind of losing it, which is pretty cool to see. And it ends on this side with Luthen sets up Tay to get assumingly executed or taken prisoner somewhere because he assesses him as too much of a threat. Because he puts Cinta, the girl from season 1, who helped in the heist. She's basically his replacement driver, and they drive off, and it's like, oh, something's gonna happen. And that's the last we get of that, so we'll see what happens there. Going back to Cyril and Deidre, the conversation is basically how you'd expect it from Cyril's mother. She is very antagonistic towards Cyril and like patronizing and downputting to him, and Cyril is a little more defensive, which he wasn't like outright like bashing what she did in season 1. He kind of just bantered with her, but he was just kind of subdued. Now he's a little more confident, and he gets a little more upset by her jolts and remarks, and especially in front of his girlfriend, he's kind of embarrassed. So he kind of just steps off, and then Deidre is actually the one who's like, yeah, you need to shut the hell up because I can ruin your life pretty easily by the history of you and your Uncle Harlow and all that. And if you want to have a relationship with your son, you're going to stop being a bitch, basically. And it works. She's immediately like, okay. The mom, she's like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. I'll be nice. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Because, of course, Deidre, she works in the IBS. She works in, like, some of the most intense places, like, in the galaxy. So I like the idea that she'd be able to easily be like, no, I can see right through what you're doing. Shut up. And, yeah, it's really good stuff. Not to mention, like, it's so funny, the faces Cyril makes throughout the episode. He's just so uncomfortable with the fact that his mom's there and talking to her and everything, and it's really great. There's some great screenshots I'll probably put up because it's just amazing. So we'll finish out with the farm planet plot farm planet plot line. There we go. Wilmon's girlfriend, you find out, was really just a plot device to get him separated from the group, so the plan would go wrong. And it's like, yep, I knew it wasn't going to be anything actually more in depth than that, but whatever. So the Empire takes Brasso prisoner, and the Imperial officer goes to Bix at the house. And it's something I didn't mention is that they actually had a scene previously, and he's basically like kind of hitting on her, but she's like, I have a husband. She's kind of lying, and so he backs off. But now he comes back and he's like, yeah, I don't see your husband here. And he's like, I know you're undocumented, whatever, you shouldn't be here. And then he goes for the angle like, maybe if quid pro quo, quid pro quo. Why can I speak today? He's like, I'll give you something, and I'll let it go, and then you can give me something in return. And she's like, oh, shoot, I know what's about to happen. And we actually get like he tries to sexually assault her, and she's only saved by the fact that she fights back, but then she's only saved by the fact that Wilmon shows up to help kind of get away, and they kill them. And I just have to say, I saw this morning a video, and it was basically like Star Wars theory freaking out over this. Like, this is not what, not like in video, but just on Twitter. He's like, this is not what Star Wars is. Something this graphic and dark should not be in Star Wars. This is terrible. And of course, everyone's bringing out like Darth Vader and the murdering people, and he's like, yes, but that was part of the character. This achieves nothing. And I was like, wait a second. You do realize that last season, Bix was explicitly and graphically tortured, right? To the point where she was like screaming, and like that was like really terrible. And then also in the opening scene of episode 1, Andor like executes a guy in cold blood. So I find it crazy that we can like, oh yeah, murder and torture, that is cool, but sexual assault, no, that can't be in Star Wars. I don't understand that. And then on the second point, that is like, this doesn't make sense. I think he used the argument like Vader wouldn't allow this or whatever. It's like, yes, Vader's not everywhere. Vader doesn't have almighty power. Most Imperial officers, most people in the Empire will never encounter Darth Vader in their life. There's just the Empire's too big. It's made of billions, possibly trillions of people. So it's just impossible that this would even like what is this? This is stupid. Like it's like, oh well, the Darth Vader and like the Empire wouldn't allow this. Like, yeah, of course they wouldn't allow this. The point is that they're on an outer rim system, pretty far from any like actual overhead authority or management, and this Imperial officer sees the opportunity to do evil stuff, so he does it, and that's it. I don't get what's so complicated about this. And then the fact that like, oh, you can't have this sort of thing in Star Wars, and it's like, why not? It's something realistic that would happen. There's nothing like immersion breaking about it. It's like, oh, I see this. Suddenly isn't science fiction anymore. No, I guess if that's your breaking point, that's fine. But I don't see any. I don't see any clear problem with it. Is what I'll say. Um, but yeah, so that happens. Cass finally gets back to the planet with the ship. Helps kill the Imperials. Brasso actually ends up getting shot, so he's not going to be able to make it out. But he saves Bix and Will, and they escape. And the last shot is their faces dealing with the fact that Brasso is dead. And Cassian's very shocked by this, which makes sense. From what we could tell, they were like really good friends, possibly best friends since maybe childhood. So, yeah, this is a death that should definitely impact him, and we should definitely see some sort of acknowledgement of that in the next episodes. My only complaint with this would be that the ship was listed when it was at the airbase as ready for a test flight, but Andor's now gone to Yavin 4 and now to this planet, and I'm like, and he hasn't eaten, first of all, and he also hasn't like refueled. So I'm like, would the ship have enough fuel to do everything that he's doing? Would he have to refuel at some point? But that'd probably be it for that. And that is basically the first 3 episodes of Andor. Overall, not as good as season 1 in my opinion, and not a total disaster. So we have some middle ground here. Slower, definitely not as much richness in terms of mixing plot and character and doing it efficiently. But we haven't shit the bed, so there's something to be proud of there. And so yeah, we'll just have to see where it goes. I will be continuing my coverage as the show is coming out, and then based on how the season goes, I will probably have some sort of critique for the overall season after the show's over. So expect that, and then we'll just say, yeah, we'll just keep going week by week with the 3 episode arcs if that's the way they do it. So yeah, I guess I will see you next time, and we will dig back into the world of Star Wars.